Welcome back. This is still News Insight. I am Pelumi. On this segment, we're talking about the FEC order to final adjustment of the 2025 budget. Mr. Obeta, please can you throw more light to this?
Well, the budget is quite interesting the way it was laid out, or from the snippets we are getting until the final budget is presented and we'll have the facts, the final fact. From what we're hearing is about 47.96 trillion in terms of the total expenditure, and with a projected revenue of 34.8 trillion in terms of revenue. For me, the first thing that strikes me is that it's not radically different in some form from the 2024 budget, which was about 46.8 trillion. Now, but where the major difference lies between the 2025 and 2024 budget is in terms of the projected revenue. In 2024 budget, they projected 25.8 trillion as revenue. In 2025 budget, they are projecting 34.8 trillion as revenue, an increase of about 36.9%. So the question is, what has changed within the Nigerian, economic sector that will warrant such a projection of 36.9% increase?
A sharp increase
in terms of revenue generation.
Yes.
What have we put in place as Nigeria to ensure that this revenue projection was met? Because interestingly, even in the 2024 budget, the 25.8 trillion budgeted was not met. As at September 30th, what was got in terms of revenue was just about 14.5 trillion.
Deficit of about 11.
Fine. So in terms of actual, you're talking about between 70 to 75% actual revenue generation. So what magic are we going to do to be able to ensure that this revenue we're projecting is going to be met? Or are we planning to still continue borrowing to be able to fund the revenue?
But there's already a borrowing plan on
in
this
the budget.
Okay. There's already a borrowing plan of 9-point-something trillion in the budget.
That's right.
And also, we must also look at the fact that this is not the final budget.
That's right.
Right? So this budget is going to go into the assembly, right? Both arms of both chambers of the assembly, and they also have their own budget.
That's right.
Well, in layman language, you call it padding. We call it padding, right? Because they have become like stakeholders. They are not acting like legislators anymore. Do you understand? They become like stakeholders that, executive, you've done your own. Oh, me too, I must do my own. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So how do we marry? Can't we marry these two budgets that are coming before it's finally presented, Mr. Betta?
It's part of the anomaly in our budgeting process. Because when the president is presenting a budget, it's assumed that it is
harmonized.
Fantastic, presenting a budget for the entire nation. And if all the other aspects of the country, their ministry, the parastatals, they will have forwarded their budget to the president, which they will put together representing the entire expenditure and revenue from the whole country. So if after the president has presented the budget and the budget still increases, then that's an anomaly in the terms.
Is it provided in the Constitution?
I think by their setup, they make laws, the legislator. I think they made a law that authorized, I think during Obasanjo sometime, I don't have the facts correctly, but I think there was a change in the process where it was, for them to be able to fix their salary. That I'm sure.
Okay, their own salary.
Yes. Okay. There is a constitutional provision.
Which they normally do when they come in as legislators during the beginning of a particular administration.
Yes. So whether there is a constitutional provision that warrants them to make input into the presidential budget, president's presentation to increase it, I'm not aware of it.
I want to ask a question because I'm not really conversant with that. At what point do ministries, parastatals, government bodies defend their budget before the House?
Well, I think it comes later in the process. Because, yes, they have made input, the president has presented for the entire nation.
Okay.
But each of those parastatals will eventually have to go back to the National Assembly to defend their budget at different times.
Okay.
And at different points in time.
Okay.
So,
because I was just thinking that at this point, can the legislators not tell the ministry, send in their own, because everything is ministry structured.
That's right.
Whether it's Ministry of Work, whether it's Ministry of Labor, do you understand, is ministry structured. Can the legislators not send in their own input before it gets to the president?
Yes, that is a very wonderful question for me, because in terms of providing, because you see, the budget is not just about expenditure. It also you want to earn the confidence of the citizen.
Yes.
It's also an indication of the financial prudence of the government, the financial direction, in terms of what the government wants to achieve.
Okay.
So if you're now going back and forth in this process, the president presents a budget, and at the end of the day, the budget changes to become something else.
Yes.
The issue of credibility comes in. Now, but if the president presents a budget and defends it, and the House accepts it, and it becomes the budget for the nation, then it has a whole lot of credibility. Then the issue will now be monitoring the performance of that budget, because the president cannot just come and make a budget in isolation of the different parastatals
and ministries. Yes.
So it is the amalgamation of their own expenses that culminates to what the president presents. So I think, in terms of financial prudence and credibility, as well as confidence, it shouldn't be touched. Once the president has presented the budget for the nation and the House goes through it and approves it, that should be the budget. I don't think it will be right if later in the day we find out that there have been some other inputs into the budget other than what the budget
is. It impute or pardon?
Mr. Pique,
yes.
He mentioned something about the revenue.
Yes.
So now there has been an increase in the projected revenue for 2025 budget.
Yes.
How effective do you think Nigerians will see this increase?
Okay, so what we have is projected.
Yes.
Okay, so the one we budgeted for in the last year, how much did we get from it? What was our revenue? We said we're going to get 25 point something. How much have we gotten? The year is almost ending, right? So now there's a sharp increase, right, in revenue that you say is going to come in. About 11 point something trillion is going to come in. What have you done differently, like he said, that is going to make this stuff coming, this income, to the government so that they can do better work? We have not seen most of these things on ground. It's very easy. These things are physical. Do you understand? There are things that we say, okay, we are doing this, and as a result, we are going to get this. Do you understand? And I've always said, one of the ways that we know that government is working is to make sure that the government harness the private sector, right? One of the ways through taxation, right? But for you to be able to tax properly, the environment has to be suitable for you to be taxed. Yes, that's the economic base. It has to be solid. You have to have good roads. You have to have security that helps to farmers to go to work. I mean, all these things. Import duties, you have to lower the dollar. Now they are projecting this dollar on this budget on $1,400. How feasible is that?
Exactly, because by next year now, it was even by end of this month now, the price of dollar might even
go up.
So
and what brings the price of dollar down is according to your exchange. If you push more product out, right? A lot of dollar is going to come in. These are principles of demand and supply. Am I correct? But if you are not going out to put the dollar, do more of export, what we do is import. Matches we import, toothpick we import,
Everything.
and all of them are taxed. You see? So we must prepare they've not done this, we've not seen them. Do you understand? Do these things, and until they do that, it's all a sham, my brother.
Mr. Victor, please, can you throw more light?
Yeah, I really, really agree, in terms of the people who are in charge of the economic policy, like you pointed out, I think a lot has to be done to bring the scenarios to what we know is feasible and what we know is possible, what we know is realistic.
Yeah.
If you're benchmarking, you're putting your budget on a benchmark of $1 to 1,400. Like the question, how feasible is that? What do we have on ground to ensure that the current rates
going to come down
to meet that? If not, we have already created a platform for failure. Because if the budget, or in actual fact, dollar does not come to 1,400, then the whole premise for the budgeting is wrong and will not be realized.
Yes.
So I hope they have solid plans and infrastructure in place to ensure that the premise of this budget will form the actual, projection in terms of the realities that we will eventually have to see.
And I think one of their projection, I'm just guessing, I'm not being, one of their projection is this new tax laws they want to put into effect. Even this new tax law is under debate. They're debating it. There's no way forward. And projecting it like that, looking of taking from the people, not looking of imputing. They're just white goose, being chased everywhere,
Thank you very much. Thank you for your insightful session with you.
Thank you.
This is still News Insight. I am Pelumi. We'll be right back.